shake up at 5:30 a.m., laundry situation not good. And when your focus is on helping your clients, it's easy to forget about yourself. But NASM knows trainers.
Morning, Ryan. It's okay.
And staying in front of the day isn't always as
Thanks,
simple
Ryan.
as 1,
What's
2,
up?
3. So when the unexpected has you pressing pause,
What's the latest on creatine?
I'm going to get back to you on that.
let NASM 1 help you press play. Visit NASM.org to sign up for a membership today.
Hey everyone, welcome to Strong Mind, Strong Body. I'm your host, Angie Miller. And today we are going to dive into what I would consider a fundamental skill that can transform your relationships, but also your mental well-being. So whether you're dealing with workplace stress or maybe some family dynamics or personal challenges, I think that these are core abilities. And that's why I decided to call today's episode Snack Size Mental Health Skills. Because I think that sometimes we conceptualize mental health as being almost like all or nothing. Like my mental health is good or my mental health isn't good. Kind of like fitness. I'm fit or I'm not fit. But I think there's a lot of gray area in there. I don't think any of us have good or bad mental health. I think that we just have some things that all of us could improve upon, both physically, mentally, and emotionally. And I think if we break mental health up into snack size, kind of palatable pieces of information, it can help all of us to feel better on the inside so that we have the physical power to feel better on the outside. So today we're going to talk about what it looks like to really deeply listen, to be able to emotionally regulate your emotions, and to have healthy conflict resolution. So all of those will help you connect with others and also manage life's pressures. I think this is perfect. We just came off of Mental Health Month, but I always find that kind of interesting. I'm like, yes, we have a Mental Health Month, but to me, mental health is a lifelong, everyday approach to you feeling the best you can feel. Just like physical health. It's not a month long, let's talk about physical well-being. It is how about an everyday we focus on feeling good. So the skills we're going to talk about today have a direct impact on your health in some critical ways because our mental health affects our physical health, because we know that unmanaged stress does have a lot of detrimental impacts on our physical well-being. We know that unmanaged stress increases cortisol, and that is a whole cascade of different things that can happen to our physical well-being. And also, of course, it improves our mental health. And also that emotional regulation piece is the key to preventing burnout and managing anxiety. And of course, our relationships, because those are the support or the foundation of our happiness, right? So if we have good relationships, we have this core foundation that helps us function in everyday life. And if we have good mental health, we're emotionally regulated. And obviously, if we manage stress, again, we are not as physically compromised. So my goal and my intention for today is by the end, you're going to have some strategies just to be able to stay present and to be able to regulate your emotions no matter the challenge that comes your way. So, and also to be able to truly listen, because listening is such an empathic endeavor and it really improves your relationships. It's also free, so why not? So let's start with that, right? Let's start with listening, because that's a powerful thing. And that's probably one of the hardest things we do in our world today. Because let's face it, we're hearing a lot of noise out there. We hear a lot of things we don't want to hear, and that's fair. There's a lot of stuff in the media that might make our stress response go, woo, and we really don't want to be a part of it. But I'm talking about listening when it comes to people who matter and people who want you to have a safe space for them. Listening is probably the most powerful way we connect with other people. And truthfully, listening is what shows that we care. So there's a lot of research out there, but studies show, like in healthcare settings, providers interrupt patients after an average of only 11 seconds. But when patients aren't interrupted, they complete their story in just 92 seconds. So this pattern shows up everywhere in our families, our friendships, and our workplace. But think about it. If you get interrupted after only 11 seconds, when really 92 seconds, you're only going to need a minute and a half if somebody just gives you uninterrupted space. So, really, we're giving people less than 2 minutes to share what's really in their heart. And or we could give them less than 2 minutes to share what's in their heart, or we could cut them off after 11 seconds because we think we already know what they're going to say, or we're already forming our rebuttal. But again, less than 2 minutes, most people are going to be able to get out what they want to say. But empathic listening becomes even more important when you think about cultural differences or generational differences. When people feel truly heard, they're more likely to open up, they're more likely to trust you, and they're more likely to work through challenges together. So I do think generally, generationally, culturally, you know, the younger the generation, they're used to quick sound bites of information. But those in older generations, a lot of times might take longer to process information, tell a story. And yet their story is just as valuable if we can just sit tight and give them an opportunity to be heard. So the self-awareness foundation for better listening, I want to talk about this, or I kind of want to, create a foundation for better listening. Before we can truly listen to other people, I think we have to understand what's happening inside of ourselves. And this is where emotional literacy comes in, which is really that ability for you to be able to identify what you're feeling. Okay. So, in order to really be a good listener, you have to have some self awareness because you have to kind of know what you're feeling. And the reason why that matters is I'm not going to hold very good space for somebody if I am in a heightened state or I'm emotionally dysregulated. So we kind of have to know where we are, because otherwise what we're hearing someone say is not what they're saying. It's a reflection of what we're feeling. Trust me. If you are dysregulated, if you've ever been very heightened and somebody says something to you, what you hear and what they said, chances are there's a big bridge between them, because you are so in your head and in your emotions that it's very hard for you to actually listen authentically. So there's a technique that I've talked about before, and I call it emotional diffusion. And what it really means is it's a healthy detachment from your emotions, and that you learn. And it's something that we do in meditation. And it's as simple as kind of changing your internal dialogue. So instead of saying something like, I'm angry or I'm anxious, it's I am feeling angry or I'm noticing that I'm experiencing some anxiety. Because the difference is that you are not the emotion, but you are experiencing it. We're such a label driven society. So when we say things like, I'm depressed, I'm anxious, I'm angry. Okay, yes, and you're not the emotion, but you are experiencing the emotion. So diffusion helps us put a little bit of distance and space between that emotion and our experience with it, because it reminds us that we have power and autonomy over how we express our emotions. Yes, you might be feeling anxious, and what can you do about that? Yes, you might be feeling depressed, and what can you do about that? Distance and perspective remind you that you alone have personal agency to notice and acknowledge your feelings without letting them take over. Again, you're not the emotion, but you are experiencing it. So, a quick self check. So, maybe before your next conversation, pause and ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Okay. Or what might trigger me in this conversation? Like, you're going in, you're going to have a really hard conversation. A lot of times you have a heads up. You kind of know it's going to be a tricky conversation. So you kind of have to know what's going to trigger me here and how am I going to manage it? Because being aware helps you prepare and to listen more objectively. Also recognize that in our diverse world, people express emotions differently and they communicate differently based on their cultural background, based on, again, generations, and based on personal history. So what sounds like anger to you might be passion to them. What sounds like passion to you might actually be anger in them. Everyone has a different way of expressing themselves, but I say let them say what they're feeling. Try not to put onto them, like you're angry, you're anxious. Not so much. Let them express how they feel. So, what might feel like disrespect to you could just be that they have a very different communication style. So, I want to give you an example to practice empathic listening. The next time someone important to you is speaking, whether it's your partner, your friend, your child, your colleague, try this. First and foremost, can you just listen without interrupting? Can you focus completely on understanding both the facts and the emotions being expressed? That's one. Okay. Just understanding, right? Without interrupting. Number two, can you resist the urge to fix or solve a problem or to relate it back to your own experiences? Meaning it's not about you and you don't have to fix them. They're not broken. They're not a toy. You don't have to get out super glue. Nobody is broken. You're just listening. And then number three, could you try to respond with something like, it sounds like you felt, or I hear that you experienced. Notice how this differs from our typical conversations where we often formulate our responses while the other person is still speaking. And consider how this type of listening might change your most important relationships. So, again, that's kind of a foundation of self awareness to help you build better listening. Be in touch with where you are emotionally and kind of separate yourself from that emotion. And then when you're going into that conversation, know what your triggers are and then try to listen without interrupting and respond with empathic statements like, it sounds like you felt, or I hear that you experienced. Okay. Now let's move into managing emotional regulation. Emotional regulation just simply means you can manage your emotions so that they don't manage you. Because you've heard me say it before, those who can't manage their emotions, manage other people with them because strong emotion takes over the room. And if you've ever been with somebody who's very heightened, you know you don't stand a chance to get your word across because they're owning all the space. There's just not enough oxygen in the room. So, first of all, when it comes to emotional regulation, breath matters. It's simple and it's free. And as long as we're alive, we've got it with us everywhere we go. We're not leaving home without our breath. Okay. It's a simple pause where we breathe in and breathe out, and it can make all the difference. So, if we pause and we take a breath before we respond in an emotionally charged situation, it creates this nice space between what you're feeling and what you're thinking so that you can act and respond in a healthy way. Just a simple, okay. I know you might think, oh, that would be a trigger. My person that I'm talking to would be like, oh, you just sighed at me. Okay. I got another one. Grab a glass of water. Just take a quick sip of water. I'm going to get to those later. That's a pattern interrupt. So just take a quick breath, not a sigh, but a breath, or take a quick drink of water. Just put a pause there because you need to make sure that what you're thinking, you don't just word vomit all over them. And if you give yourself a pause, it makes a difference. So another one is cognitive reframing. It's another really, really powerful tool. So a lot of times we just kind of pigeonhole people. We don't want them to do it to us, but we do it to them. Oh, they're just such a difficult person. Or, oh, they're just so hard to get along with. Or, oh, they're just so stubborn. Or, oh, what a control freak. We put all these labels on people. But when do we look in the mirror? Because I'm pretty sure we've all been stubborn. We've all been control freaks. We've all been difficult. So who are we to label everyone else? So maybe that difficult person is just a person who's going through HELL in life right now. Maybe they are going through the worst situation of their lives and maybe they can't talk to you about it. That you got to give them a little bit of grace and be like, hey, if somebody's acting like that, they must be going through it. Sometimes for me, that helps me a lot. It helps me to be like, that's not on me, that's on them. If they're acting like that, they must be going through it. I'm going to give them some grace because then I don't have to wear it. I don't have to wear their spice all over me, right? So the next one is just the 90-second reset. And it's a technique that it was in Dr. Jill Bolt, or it might be Bolte Taylor. She did My Stroke of Insight, and she talked about when an emotion is triggered, there's a chemical response that goes to your body, and it takes not less than 90 seconds to surge through and clear out. So she says that if you stay dysregulated after 90 seconds, that's your choice. You're biting the hook. You're the fish. You bit the hook. That was your choice. Because she says that in 90 seconds, if you just pause and you ground yourself, that strong emotion is going to flush through your system. So she says 90 seconds works in 3 phases. The first 30 seconds, you just recognize and name what you're feeling, and you notice all the physical sensations in your body. That's all. You're just acknowledging it. I'm not saying it's pretty, but you're just acknowledging it. In the middle 30 seconds, it peaks. This is where you're going through the thorns. Okay, you're walking through a rose bush and you're getting all thorny, but it's only 30 seconds. So you're just going to stay with that really, really ugly emotion and let it go through you, and you're not going to fight it. And then in the final 30 seconds, you're going to notice the intensity is going to start to fade. Your body's going to start to calm, and you're going to be able to respond rationally. I'm telling you, it works. I'm telling you, it's only a minute and a half, and it really does work if you just give yourself 90 seconds. So in those 90 seconds, you can do one of these pattern interrupts too that I'm going to suggest. You can push your feet into the floorboard and just ground yourself during that time so that you know that you're still present. You're right here. You're okay. You can grab a steering wheel if you're in the car. But some other pattern interrupts just in general, right? So that if you're not going to use the breath or whatever, take a sip of cold water. If you're in a situation where you're at work and you know you're going to go into a heightened meeting, go step outside for a minute. You can do a tense and release, just that tense and release throughout your whole body. You can stand up and shake your whole body. Honestly, one of my favorite things, I got it from my dog, Bodie. I have him to thank. I literally cannot tell you how many times a day I stand up and I just go, and I shake my whole body. And everybody's like, you're weird, but it's okay, because I get it all out of my system. And in fact, I do it with my fitness classes all the time. So if you take my fitness class, you got to learn to shake your booty and your body. So the other thing you could do is whistle or hum. You could do a gentle stretch. You can focus on what you can control instead of what you can't. And you can also have a word of the day, like grace or forgiveness. Like today, my word of the day is going to be self-compassion. All right. So let me reintroduce myself. I'm Angie Miller. This is Strong Mind, Strong Body. And I am talking about snack size mental health skills that you can take with you everywhere you go. I'm focusing on listening. I'm focusing on emotional regulation. Okay. And that's so far what we've covered. So let me give you some examples of how to use this one that we just covered, this emotional regulation. So scenario 1, you're at a family dinner and there's some drama. Maybe your teenager makes a sarcastic comment and that comment usually sets you off. Instead of reacting immediately, take that critical breath. Just take a little pause. Could be very quiet without any sound. Use the 90-second reset. Name the feeling. I'm feeling really disrespected. I'm noticing that I'm feeling very frustrated. Okay. Then you could do a cognitive reframe, like, you know what, they might be having a really bad day. Teenagers, that's not a fun time. I don't remember it being a super fun time. And then you can respond from calm. It sounds like something's bothering you. Would you like to talk about it? That would throw them off because they're used to you getting your spice on, right? A lot of times people throw bait because they want you to grab the bait. They want to get spice with spice. Isn't that what a fight is all about? But what happens when you don't take the bait? So scenario 2 is work conflict. A colleague interrupts you in a meeting and they take credit for your idea. Here's the pattern interrupt. You push your feet firmly into the floor under the table. They don't know you're doing it. You give them a quick reframe. They might be feeling insecure about their own contributions, right? So maybe they decided they were going to take credit for you because they're just insecure. Then you could choose your moment to address it privately, rather than let it escalate in public, because that's never any fun. It's one thing to have an altercation with somebody. It's another thing to do it when there's, you make a public scene, if you will. Okay. So we did our emotional regulation. We did listening. And my last snack size tip for good mental health is being able to resolve conflict in a healthy way. So all of us have been in emotionally charged situations. Maybe other people started them. Maybe we did. Who cares? I don't care who started it, right? I care about what happens once it starts, right? It's like when your brain says those are fighting words. What are you going to do now? So we all encounter these emotionally charged situations, and they require a lot of skill, without a doubt. So whether you're dealing with an upset family member, a frustrated coworker, or any relationship conflict, your ability to manage these interactions is going to affect your mental health and the quality of your connections. Honestly, guys, it's not about what you do when you're getting along, it's about what you do when you're not. Trust me, right? When things are cozy, things are cozy. But when they're not, that's when you really figure out how well or not well somebody manages their you know, kind of strong feelings. And I know I, for one, am a person who, when I know somebody's highly reactive or dysregulated, I'm like, I just it's not good for my mental health to be around them, right? So you want to be that person who can manage your emotions. So de-escalation always is going to start with you. I don't care what someone says or does, it's always going to start with you because you can't control other people. So research shows that your physiological state, your heart rate, your breathing, your muscle tension is going to influence the emotional tone of your interactions. So if you're escalated, you're going to escalate other people, right? It just is going to happen. So another one is when you're talking about conflict resolution, I think it's important to talk about psychological safety. This is probably one of my favorite things to talk about in human interactions or human connection. Do I feel psychologically safe with you? Are you consistent or are you consistently dysregulated? Psychological safety, there was Google's Project Aristotle identified psychological safety as the most important factor in high performing teams. And this applies to all relationships. Psychological safety means that when we create an environment where people feel safe expressing their thoughts and feelings without fear of judgment or retaliation, that's what we're doing when we create psychological safety. So if we've got that at work, people are going to express their thoughts and feelings and they're not going to fear judgment or retaliation. But guess what is going to happen if they don't? You're not going to have a high performing team. People are kind of high bolted out of there. Burnout's going to be rampant. See, that's a really important thing. So I'm going to give you one little technique for de-escalation, and it's called the LEAP technique. And that's just the acronym for listen first, empathize, agree where possible, and partner on solutions. So I'll go back through those, but that's LEAP. So LEAP is listen first. Don't get defensive. Well, that was defensive of me to say, don't get defensive. I didn't word that very well. Rewind the tape, please. No, listen first. Let's, if we get defensive, we're going to put other people on the defense. The E is empathize. I can see this is really frustrating for you. I'm noticing that you're really upset. A is agree where possible. You're right. This isn't working. Or you're right. We really need to work this out. And then P is partner on solutions. What would help us move forward? Us, right? We want to know what would help us move forward because when there's conflict, there's a bridge. You both got to cross the bridge and meet in the middle. Because if one person does all the work, resentment builds, resentment builds, resentment builds. Remember, you're not agreeing with everything everyone says. You're just agreeing that their feelings are valid and that the situation needs your attention. Agreement isn't you're right, I'm wrong, or I'm wrong, you're right. No, it is just that everybody has valid feelings. You don't have to agree with their feelings, but you don't get to pull them out of their body and be like, you are not allowed to have those feelings. Okay. The goal isn't to avoid conflict. It's just to navigate it in ways that will strengthen rather than damage your relationships. Right. So, all of this not only improves your mental health, but the bottom line is it improves your resilience. And your resilience is just your ability to adapt and recover from stress and adversity. It's what allows you to use these skills consistently, even when life gets overwhelming. So sustainable resilience isn't about enduring more and more stress. It's just developing these practices that allow you to process and recover from life's emotional demands, right? So I hope that these snack size mental health tips, I hope talking about emotional regulation, talking about resilience, talking about de escalation and giving, like the leap technique and talking about listening. If we can just embrace these simple kind of snack size sound bites of mental health, we can improve our relationships. And again, our relationships are the foundation. So, again, I'm Angie Miller. I'm so glad that you joined me here today. And you know what? Whether it's May, June, July, or any month of the year, mental health matters. And it's going to make a massive difference in how we navigate life. So, thank you so much for joining me today. And I look forward to seeing you next week.